Tuesday, June 9th, 1953 began like most any other June morning. Children looking forward to their summer vacation were a little less reluctant to hurry off to school. At the factories, the shifts changed the way they always do. The traffic downtown began to pick up. At their breakfast tables and in the coffee shops, people read that morning's Worcester telegram and learned that Allied and Communist truce negotiators were on the threshold of an armistice that would end the fighting in Korea. Worcester's new city manager, Francis McGraw, was asking the city council for funds to fix up old schools. Tropical weight suits in Dacron were $29.95. A GE refrigerator was $279 plus. You got a free space helmet and rocket ray gun for the kids. That night at Lowe's Plymouth Theater, you could see Marjorie Main and Percy Kilbride in Ma and Pa Kettle on Vacation. With a second big hit, Girls in the Night. There was another story on the front page of the Telegram that morning, which ominously told of tornadoes in Ohio and Michigan that had left 80 people dead. The forecast on that fateful Tuesday said warmer, more humid, with gusty southwest winds, and a chance of a thundershower in the afternoon. In the words of one who remembers, the afternoon of June 9th was terrifically hot and still, with a strange feeling, a sense of being surrounded by almost unbearable pressure. To many who saw it from a distance, it looked like a vague discoloration in the atmosphere or a column of smoke. After being born somewhere on the eastern fringe of the Quabbin Reservoir, the tornado came, without warning, swirling and crashing out of the forest along West Road in Petersham. It was 4:20 in the afternoon. No one could imagine what the next 80 minutes held in store. By most accounts, Hector and Caroline Cameron were the first people to see the tornado. Mrs. Cameron had been napping and woke to sound of breaking glass. When she looked outside, there was nothing where the barn and stable had stood just moments before. At 4:45, the tornado hit Barry, where it would claim its first victims. 18-year-old Beverly Strong and 11-year-old Eddie White, whose family shared a house on Old Stage Road. They weren't together when the tornado hit, or when they died, but their bodies were found side by side near a stone wall, 300 yards from the ruins of what had been their home. Remnants of their clothing were found in nearby trees. At 4:54, the tornado bore down on Rutland. 2 more people are killed. Holden was next at 5:02. Now out of the rural areas, the tornado began to take its heaviest toll. In just minutes, 8 people are dead. Damage is estimated at $5 million. The tornado's path could be traced almost like a signature, as it left an eerie trail of electric clocks that had stopped when the storm tore down power lines. Worcester was next. At 5:08, the tornado slashed and tore its way across the northern part of the city. Indoors, it threw people and furniture downstairs, against walls, and through windows before the buildings themselves literally exploded from the difference in pressure it created. Outdoors, it lifted people up and carried them off, dropping them hundreds of feet away. Automobiles were cast about like paper cups, then were crushed or torn apart. Houses were pushed off their foundations and churned into splinters and rubble that was strewn across the landscape. One survivor remembers a deafening roar, the sound of shattering glass, the vacuum that threatened to collapse the lungs, the darkness, and the question, are we going to live through this? For 61 residents of Worcester, the answer is no. In less than 15 minutes, the city suffers $32 million worth of destruction. The Norton and Velumoid plants are seriously damaged. A minute and a half later, the tornado rips through the main building of Assumption College, now Quinsigamond Community College. A priest is buried in the rubble. 3 nuns die in a nearby convent. It is a scene which for many will come to symbolize the tornado. Still, the worst is yet to come. In 1953, 825 Worcester families were happy in their new homes in what was called the Project, the Great Brook Valley Gardens and Curtis Apartments. In a matter of moments, their homes are gone, replaced with $5 million worth of smashed brick and mortar, twisted steel, broken glass, and broken dreams. At 5:20, the tornado plows into Shrewsbury. 11 people die. Westboro is next at 5:30. 7 people are killed. Back at the Worcester Airport, there are thunderstorms, strong gusty winds, visibility is down to a mile. At 5:35, in a bizarre, almost incredible twist to the story, the observer on duty for the Civil Aeronautics Board receives the first official report of the tornado. At 5:40, the tornado hits Southboro. 3 people die. Then, as tornadoes usually do at the end, it simply toppled over and disappeared forever. In the aftermath, the communities of the Worcester area displayed unprecedented courage and cooperation in their awesome task of picking up the pieces and rebuilding their homes and their lives. Later, the Massachusetts Governor Christian Herter would be moved to say that in his lifetime, having witnessed many disasters and hideous things, he had never seen an emergency better managed than here in Worcester. City Manager Francis McGraw declared a state of emergency, calling out the civil defense and requesting the services of the National Guard. The Red Cross moved quickly to set up first aid stations and schools throughout the area, providing both medical attention and meals. There were long lines of people waiting to donate blood. The National Guard protected property while the Salvation Army mobilized to provide shelter and clothing for the tornado's victims, many of whom had lost everything. Worcester Memorial Auditorium was transformed into a giant clothing warehouse. Donations poured in. Help came from every direction. Neighbors were taken in by neighbors, church groups cleaned up debris, set up shelters and relief assistance, and held worship services amidst the rubble. Slowly but surely, a brick at a time, a day at a time, buildings and lives were put back together. No one who experienced it will ever forget it. Tuesday, June 9th, 1953. 94 dead, 1,705 injured, $50 million in damage in an era when homes cost a few $1,000s. All in a little more than an hour's time. To this day, it remains one of the worst tornadoes in United States history in deadliness and destruction. But the true legacy of the tornado of 1953 was not written during its short, terrible life of 80 minutes. Neither was it written in the death of the 94 people who perished in its maelstrom. But rather, it was written in the story of the survivors. As is so often the case in the wake of disaster, many heroes were discovered, hiding in ordinary people. People who came through for one another, without question or reservation, under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Worcester area residents showed the state and the rest of the country what it means to give and what it means to have grit. It was a time when faith, hope, and charity rolled up their sleeves, picked up a hammer and nail, and put a city back together again, better than before. And so, in many ways, the tornado of June 1953 became Worcester's finest hour.